Can you see a classroom completely transformed into a garden of hope, with 16-year-old students crying tears of relief and joy, embracing each other as if they had discovered the cure to all their problems? Stay with me until the end of this episode, and you'll discover how a simple life celebration party became the greatest emotional revolution SchoolVerse Academy has ever witnessed. And it all started when Mila decided to follow her Christian convictions about Halloween and create something completely different. But before we get to that epic revelation that changed hearts and minds forever, let me tell you how an alternative party became a collective therapy session that transformed lives. Because this story has faith, courage, genuine conversion through love, and most importantly, a lesson about how celebrating life can be infinitely more powerful than any dark tradition. It was Monday, October 28th, and all of SchoolVerse Academy was bustling with Halloween preparations. The corridors were decorated with pumpkins, ghosts, and all sorts of ornaments that referenced death and the supernatural. But while all the students were planning their spooky costumes and themed parties, Mila walked through the corridors with a different smile on her face. She observed all that commotion with a completely unique perspective, because for her, as an evangelical Christian, that date represented something totally contrary to her deepest beliefs. Yuki said, "Mila, have you decided what costume you're wearing to the Halloween party on Friday?" Mila said, "Actually, Yuki, I won't be participating in Halloween celebrations. As a Christian, I believe in celebrating life, not death." Yuki said, "Really? But it's just a party, it's no big deal." Mila said, "I understand that for many people it's just cultural fun. But for me there's a matter of convenience and testimony. I prefer not to associate with celebrations that reference witchcraft and death, even if it's just for fun." Their conversation happened right when Diego was passing through the corridor, and something about Mila's tranquility and conviction completely caught his attention. There was genuine peace in how she explained her beliefs, without judgment or arrogance, just serene certainty about her values. Diego said, "Sorry to interrupt, but I heard you talking about not celebrating Halloween." "That's interesting," Mila said. "Hi, Diego. It's because I believe that we Christians can do all things, as the Apostle Paul said, but not all things are beneficial to us. So I prefer to celebrate life in other ways," Diego said. "And how do you do that?" Mila said. "Well, I was thinking of organizing a life celebration party on Friday. Cheerful music, good food, fun games, and especially an environment where people can truly connect. You know." Diego became genuinely intrigued. There was something about how Mila talked about her faith that was completely different from anything he'd ever seen. It wasn't preaching or imposition. It was simply someone living their convictions with natural joy. Diego said, "That sounds much better than scaring people with death costumes." Yuki said, "You mean you're going to throw an alternative party?" Mila said, "Exactly. I'll call it the Life Party. Anyone who wants to celebrate something positive and uplifting is invited." Meanwhile, on the other side of the corridor, Luna observed the entire conversation with a mixture of disbelief and growing irritation. For her, seeing Diego show genuine interest in Mila's ideas was like watching her perfectly controlled world begin to crumble. Luna said, "Sarah, are you seeing this? Mila is trying to ruin everyone's Halloween with her weird religious beliefs." Sarah said, "She just said she's not participating, Luna. She's not stopping anyone." Luna said, "But she's influencing Diego. Did you see how interested he was in that pathetic life party? This is unacceptable." Sarah said, "Maybe it's a cool idea to have an alternative for people who don't like Halloween." Luna said, "Sarah, whose side are you on?" Mila is trying to be different and attention-seeking, and I won't let her steal the attention that should be mine." What Luna couldn't understand is that Diego's attraction to Mila's ideas had nothing to do with rebellion or desire to be different. It was genuine attraction to someone who had real convictions and the courage to live according to them, regardless of social pressure. On Tuesday, Mila began promoting her life party in a very natural and positive way. She didn't criticize Halloween or judge those who participated. She simply offered a beautiful and purposeful alternative for anyone interested. Mila said, "Hey everyone, for anyone who wants a different Friday, I'm throwing a life party at my house. There'll be music, games, good food, and especially an environment where we can truly connect and celebrate all the good things in life." A student said, "That sounds cool, Mila. What kind of activities are you planning?" Mila said, "I'm thinking collaborative games, a gratitude moment where everyone can share something good that happened recently, live music, and lots of homemade food made with love." Another student said, "Wow, that sounds much cozier than a loud Halloween party." Diego said, "Can I help with something? Maybe I could bring my guitar and play some songs." Mila said, "That would be amazing, Diego. Music always makes everything more special." The genuine excitement in Mila's voice was contagious. She wasn't trying to compete with Halloween or prove she was right. She was simply offering something that came from the heart and reflected her deepest values. A student said, "Mila, can I bring some friends? We're not Christians, but the idea of a party focused on positive things is really appealing to us." Mila said, "Of course, everyone's welcome. The only rule is to come with an open heart to have fun and celebrate life." On Wednesday, something unexpected began to happen. Students who initially had planned to go only to Halloween parties began showing genuine interest in Mila's life party. It wasn't from pressure or obligation, but because there was something in her proposal that touched a real need many didn't even know they had. Marcos said, "You know, Mila, I was thinking about what you said about celebrating life. Lately, I've been feeling kind of lost, and the idea of a party where I can be myself without masks or pretenses is really appealing to me." Mila said, "Marcos, that's exactly it. Sometimes we're so used to superficial celebrations that we forget how good it is to truly connect with people and with the good things in life." Marcos said, "Can I invite some friends? They're also kind of tired of the same old parties." Mila said, "The more people who want to celebrate good things, the better." Diego watched all this movement with growing admiration. He began to realize that Mila wasn't simply organizing an alternative party. She was creating a space where people felt safe to be authentic and vulnerable. Diego said, "Mila, I have to admit something. At first I thought your life party was just a different way to have fun, but now I'm realizing it's much deeper than that." Mila said, "What do you mean, Diego?" Diego said, "You're creating something people really need. A place where they can truly connect, without pressure to be perfect or follow social expectations." Mila said, "It's because I believe God created us to have genuine relationships and celebrate life's blessings. When we focus on what's good and true, people are naturally drawn to it." Diego said, "That makes a lot of sense. Can I be honest? I was getting tired of superficial parties where everyone pretends to be someone they're not." Mila said, "Diego, you can be exactly who you are at my party. Actually, that's what I want most, for people to feel free to be authentic." On Thursday, Luna finally decided to take a more direct approach to the situation that was completely spiraling out of her control. Luna said, "Mila, I need to talk to you about this life party." Mila said, "Sure, Luna. What do you want to know?" Luna said, "Don't you think you're being a bit too dramatic about this whole not celebrating Halloween thing? It's just a party. It doesn't go against your religious beliefs to participate in something cultural." Mila said, "Luna, I understand your point of view, and I totally respect those who choose to participate. For me, it's a matter of personal convenience. I prefer to celebrate things that edify and bring life." Luna said, "But aren't you kind of judging people who participate in Halloween?" Mila said, "Not at all. Everyone has the right to follow their own convictions. I'm just offering an alternative for those who identify with a different proposal." Luna said, "And don't you think you're being presumptuous thinking your party will be better than traditional ones?" Mila said, "Luna, I'm not competing with anyone. I just want to create a space where people can have fun, celebrating positive things. If that touches someone's heart, I'm happy. If it doesn't, that's okay too." The serenity and genuine love in Mila's response left Luna completely disarmed. She had come prepared for an argument, but found someone who responded with grace and understanding. Sarah said, "Luna, Mila has a point. Maybe it's cool to have a different option." Luna said, "Sarah, you're being influenced by her religious propaganda." Mila said, "Luna, I'm not trying to convert anyone or impose my beliefs. I'm just living according to what I believe and offering something that comes from my heart." Luna said, "But you're taking people away from normal parties." Mila said, "People are freely choosing where they want to be. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about what each person feels is best for them." Friday arrived, and Mila's life party was about to happen. What no one expected was the number of students who genuinely chose to participate in the alternative celebration, not from religious obligation, but because something in her proposal had touched their hearts. Mila's house was decorated with flowers, soft lights, and everything that referenced life's beauty and joy. When Diego arrived with his guitar, he was impressed by the warm and welcoming atmosphere she had created. Diego said, "Mila, this is incredible. I feel a peace here that's completely different." Mila said, "That's what happens when we focus on celebrating good and true things, Diego. People naturally feel lighter and more connected." Yuki said, "Guys, I brought some friends who wanted to experience this different party." Mila said, "Welcome everyone. Let's start with a gratitude moment where each person can share something good that happened recently." What happened next was something no one could have predicted. When people began sharing their gratitudes and positive moments, an atmosphere of genuine vulnerability and deep connection took over the environment. Marcos said, "I want to thank God for finding friends who accept me as I am, without pressure to be someone I'm not." A student said, "I'm grateful to be recovering from a very difficult period in my life, and for having people like you who support me." Diego said, "I'm grateful for meeting people like Mila, who inspire me to be a better version of myself." As more people shared, tears of relief and joy began rolling down students' faces. Many were carrying heavy emotional burdens and had finally found a safe space to be vulnerable and authentic. Mila said, "Do you know why I choose to celebrate life instead of death? Because I believe God created us to have hope, to connect with each other, and to celebrate all the blessings we receive each day." A student said, "Mila, that's beautiful. I never thought about faith that way. I always thought religion was about rules and judgment." Mila said, "True Christian faith is about love, hope, and celebrating the life God gave us. It's about caring for each other and finding joy in simple and good things." Another student said, "Can I ask a question? How do you manage to have this peace and joy even when things get difficult?" Mila said, "It's because I believe I'm not alone. God is with me at all times, and that gives me hope that goes beyond circumstances." Diego said, "Mila, I have to admit, I've always been skeptical about religion, but the way you live your faith is completely different from anything I've ever seen. Mila said, Diego, true faith isn't about being perfect or judging others. It's about recognizing that we need God and that He loves us unconditionally. It was at that moment that something extraordinary began to happen. Several students began asking sincere questions about Mila's faith, not from pressure or manipulation, but because they saw something real in her that their hearts longed for. A student said, Mila, how can I have this hope you have? I've felt lost for a long time. Mila said, you can talk to God exactly like you're talking to me now. He wants to have a personal relationship with you. Marcos said, can I pray right here? I feel like I need this. Mila said, of course. Let's make a circle, and whoever wants can pray, or just stay silent. What happened next was the most beautiful scene SchoolVerse Academy had ever witnessed. 16-year-old students, who minutes before were just school classmates, transformed into a genuine community, praying for each other and sharing their deepest struggles. Diego said, God, I don't know much about prayer, but I want to thank you for putting Mila in my life. She showed me there's a different way to live. Yuki said, Lord, thank you for having a friend like Mila, who teaches me about true love and hope. A student said, Jesus, I've been fighting depression for months. Please help me find the peace I see in Mila. Tears rolled down faces, but they were tears of relief and transformation. Many students were experiencing for the first time in their lives a genuine encounter with God's love through Mila's natural and loving testimony. Mila said, do you know what's most beautiful about all this? God has always been waiting for this moment. He loves each of you more than you can imagine. Wait a minute. Do you think you know what a life-transforming party is? Hold on. If you think that was intense, hit that like button to give me strength and subscribe, because you're going to need emotional support for what's coming. Because just when these hearts were being healed through Christ's love, something even more incredible was about to happen. When the party was coming to an end, Diego approached Mila with a completely transformed expression on his face. Diego said, Mila, I've never felt anything like what I felt today. It's as if a peace I didn't even know existed has taken over my heart. Mila said, Diego, that's God's love touching your life. He wants to have a personal relationship with you. Diego said, how do I do this? How do I give my life to Jesus? Mila said, you just talk to him with an open heart. Recognize that you need him and ask him to be the Lord of your life. Diego said, Jesus, I want to truly know you. I give my life to you and ask you to transform me like you transformed Mila. At that moment, something supernatural happened. An indescribable peace took over the environment, and everyone could feel God's real presence, transforming lives before their eyes. Marcos said, I want to give my life to Jesus too. A student said, I want to be part of this family of faith. Another student said, Mila, how can I learn more about Jesus? What began as a simple alternative to Halloween had transformed into the greatest spiritual movement SchoolVerse Academy had ever witnessed. After this supernatural moment of conversions and spiritual transformations, something even more beautiful happened at Mila's life party. The young people who had just given their lives to Jesus and experienced God's love for the first time were radiant with joy they had never felt before. Some still had tears in their eyes, but now they were tears of pure happiness and liberation. Yuki said, Guys, now that our hearts are healed, let's celebrate life with lots of partying, joy, and food. Of course. And that's exactly what happened. The party transformed into an authentic celebration of the new life these students had found in Christ. Diego picked up his guitar and began playing cheerful and uplifting songs, while everyone sang and danced with a freedom they had never experienced. Some students' mothers had prepared delicious and healthy foods that filled the house with wonderful aromas. But what fed those hearts most was the genuine fellowship happening between them. Marcos said, "For the first time in my life, I feel really free to be myself." For some blessed hours, those teenagers could completely forget their family problems, school pressures, and lack of understanding, the traumas they carried, and all the confusion weighing on their lives. They were experiencing what it truly means to celebrate life through Christ's love. Mila's party had become exactly what she always dreamed, a space where young people could be authentic, find emotional and spiritual healing, and celebrate life's blessings in genuine community. Students who arrived curious were leaving completely transformed by Christ's love. Yuki said, "Mila, this is a miracle. I've never seen so many people being touched by God at the same time." Mila said, "That's what happens when we live our faith with authenticity and love. God uses our obedience to touch hearts that are thirsty for Him." Diego said, "Mila, thank you for having the courage to be different. If you had participated in Halloween like everyone else, I would never have met Jesus." Mila said, "Diego, that's exactly why I choose to celebrate life. Because when we focus on what God has best for us, He does extraordinary things." When Monday came, all of SchoolVerse Academy was talking about Mila's life party. It wasn't just about a different party. It was about lives that had been genuinely transformed by Christ's love. Luna said, "Sarah, what happened at that party? Everyone's different." Sarah said, "Luna, I went there and it was the most beautiful experience of my life." Luna said, "I can't believe this. Traitor." Sarah said, "I stayed hidden there." Mila didn't preach to anyone. She simply lived her faith with so much love that all of us wanted to know Jesus. Luna said, "That's impossible. A party doesn't change people like that." Sarah said, "It wasn't the party, Luna. It was the genuine love Mila has for God and people. She showed us what it's like to have a real relationship with Jesus." Luna said, "Did you become religious too?" Sarah said, "I found hope, Luna. Something I didn't know I was looking for." Luna watched the students who had participated in the party and noticed something that deeply disturbed her. They were radiant with genuine joy she had never seen before. There was a light in their eyes that came from something much deeper than any superficial fun. A teacher said, "Mila, I don't know what you did at that party, but several students came to talk to me about changes they want to make in their lives. They're more focused, kinder, more hopeful." Mila said, "Teacher, when people meet Jesus, they naturally want to live differently. It's God's love transforming hearts, teacher." Another teacher said, "Well, whatever it is, it's having an incredible positive impact on the school." Diego approached Mila during break with a smile that radiated the peace he had found. Diego said, "Mila, I've been thinking a lot about Friday. How can I grow in this new faith I found?" Mila said, "Diego, what joy to see you with this thirst to grow. We can study the Bible together. You can come to my church. And most importantly, you can talk to God every day." Diego said, "I want all of that. And you know what else? I want to be like you. Someone who lives their faith so naturally that it inspires others to know Jesus." Mila said, "Diego, the secret isn't trying to imitate anyone. It's simply loving God with all your heart and letting Him live through you." Yuki said, "Guys, did you see how the whole school is talking about what happened at the party? People who weren't even there are asking about Jesus." Mila said, "That's how God works, Yuki. When He transforms some lives, the impact spreads far beyond what we can imagine." On Tuesday, something unexpected happened. Students who hadn't participated in the party began seeking out Mila to understand what had happened that was changing so many people. A student said, "Mila, Marcos is completely different since Friday. He said he found Jesus at your party. How is that possible?" Mila said, "When people find God's true love, they naturally transform. Jesus changes hearts from the inside out." Another student said, "Can I ask an honest question? Why did you choose to throw a life celebration party instead of participating in Halloween?" Mila said, "Because as a Christian, I believe we were created to celebrate life, hope, and love. Halloween references death and the supernatural in a dark way, and I prefer to focus on what brings light and joy." A student said, "That makes sense, and it worked, because everyone who went to your party is happier and more hopeful." Mila said, "That happens when we focus on the good things God has for us. He always wants the best for our lives." Another student said, "Mila, can you explain more about Jesus? I'm curious." Mila said, "Of course. Jesus is God's Son, who came to the world to show us the Father's love and give us eternal life. When we accept Him in our hearts, everything changes." On Wednesday, the entire school was talking about the transformation that had happened. Teachers commented on positive changes in student behavior, and a completely new atmosphere had taken over SchoolVerse Academy. Marcos said, "Guys, do you want to form a Bible study group here at school? I want to learn more about Jesus." Diego said, "I'm in. We can meet during lunch." A student said, "I want to participate too. Since Friday, I've felt a thirst to know more about God." Yuki said, "Mila, look what your obedience caused. A whole spiritual movement in the school." Mila said, "Guys, this is God working. When we choose to celebrate life instead of death, He uses our obedience to touch many hearts." Luna observed all this movement with a mixture of disbelief and strange uneasiness in her heart. For the first time in her life, she was seeing something greater than popularity, status, or social control. Sarah said, "Luna, you should talk to Mila about Jesus. The peace I found is real." Luna said, "Sarah, this is just a phase. You'll get tired of this religious thing." Sarah said, "Luna, this isn't religion. It's a relationship with God. It's completely different." Luna said, "But you're all acting like you've found the solution to every problem." Sarah said, "Not every problem, Luna, but the hope and peace that come from Jesus are real. You can experience it too." But guys, do you really think this extraordinary transformation will stay with just this small group? Because from what I saw happen, after Mila's life party, all of SchoolVerse is about to experience a complete revolution. If you saw how choosing to celebrate life instead of death can convert hearts through genuine love, imagine what will happen when the school announces a K-pop Warriors competition that will test not just talents, but mainly characters. When art, competition, and faith meet on SchoolVerse's stage, Diego will discover how far his new faith can go to defend those he loves. The K-pop Warriors competition arrives at SchoolVerse next week, and the shine everyone thought they knew will transform into the most epic battle between light and darkness this school has ever witnessed. The video's already live, because this spiritual warfare, disguised as a musical competition, will change everything you thought about talent, faith, and true brilliance. Just click and watch the K-pop Warriors battle at SchoolVerse. And guys, did you notice something incredible that happened at the life party at Mila's house? Diego and Mila showed themselves as extraordinary singers and composers, creating live music that touched the hearts of everyone present. The songs they composed spontaneously during the party were so beautiful and full of hope that several students asked to hear them again. If you want to listen to the songs that were sung at Mila's life party, which they composed right there on the spot, just click and listen to the playlist, Songs from Mila's Life Party.